So I would like to do just a short review, not take up like last night a whole hour reviewing. So not going through, everything that Rinpoche said, so that there'll be enough time for questions. I think the one of the main things that Rinpoche was pointing out was the dependent arising being the king of lines of reasoning. There are the 5 great Madhyamaka lines of reasoning. There is, without giving the names, since I don't recall all the names, I must confess, from the point of view of the essential nature of things, you refute neither things are neither one nor many, neither identical to the basis or separate from the basis. Then from the point of view of cause, that things do not arise from self or from others. From the point of view of the result, things don't arise from nothing or from the already existing. And then from the point of view of both the cause and the result, that one cause doesn't give one or many truly existing results, and many causes don't give either one or many truly existent results. So the 4 possibilities. Those are the 4, but they do not. They don't eliminate both truly established. They don't. I don't know how you would say eliminate, but you don't get dependent arising. It doesn't conform. Give you the. You can refute self-established existence that way. So you're only dealing with dependent, with deepest truth, but it doesn't really give you, what should we say? Trying to figure out how to say this. You're refuting only the self-established existence on the deepest level, but you're not refuting it on the conventional level. And so, like that, it's not it's not taking care of the 2 extremes, the 2 truths. And the thing that is so strong about dependent arising is that dependent arising refutes, because things dependently arise, they can't be self-established, otherwise there's no need for it to depend on anything to arise, and because they dependently arise, they function, so the functionality is there. So when we have grasping for self-established existence, then it covers over or obscures both deepest truth and conventional truth. Because if you imagine that the conventional truth is self-established, then it couldn't function. So it obscures the 2 truths. And so that's why with the line of reasoning of dependent arising, you eliminate this, obscuration or obstacle to understanding both deepest truth and conventional truth. And when Rinpoche asked, on behalf of his teacher, His Holiness, the question about how can dependent arising refute truly established existence when it's not a negation phenomenon. Negation phenomenon would be a refutation of something. Then, as His Holiness explained, and you can derive it from His Holiness explained from Chuni Rinpoche's commentary on Avatamsaka Sutra, that, as you can see from the Sanskrit as well, that pratitya in Sanskrit, the pratitya is dendrel in Tibetan. So den was explained as that it means, from thusness, I think was the word that was used. So that is from voidness, and then it arises dependent on voidness. So dependent on voidness, and it arises. So it was explained like that. But to me, it is quite clear from the Sanskrit, because pratitya, prati means first. So first you have to have the understanding of voidness, and itya means that it comes from that, so that the Tibetan takes it depends on that. So depending on having understood and refuted, with voidness first, which is then consistent with the fact that subsequent attainment, realization comes subsequent to total absorption on voidness. So it follows from that based on the based on this non-conceptual cognition of voidness first, then coming from that, the samutpada, pratitya samutpada, then dependent arising things arise, so they function. So it can be derived both from the etymology of the original Sanskrit and from the Tibetan. So that means that it just confirms that dependent arising is able to refute truly established existence in terms of both truths, and establish that things function. I don't know if that made anything clearer, but that was what Rinpoche was explaining, and I think that is sort of the essence of everything that was explained. And then we had the question and answer session with Rinpoche, and I think that I hope that things were clear from the answers that Rinpoche gave and the summaries that I gave of his answers. That's it. So, as I said, I wanted to make it short so that there was time in our final session here for questions.
She was already waiting in the last. Yeah, no, she was waiting a lot.
Well, she
was waiting already.
first come, first served.
Thank you. You answered precisely the question I had, because I had Serkong Rinpoche explains the antidote, or the mind acting as an antidote towards self-grasping, and then as I understood, it's like a kind of two-step approach. So first, you meditate on voidness, and second on dependent origination, right?
Right. That.
How? So, Mike, I thank you exactly, because I thought it was wonderful that you deepened this or elaborate on it a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But my question is, how do you meditate on these like kind of two steps with the second step turning back to the first one.
Right. In the total absorption on voidness, what arises to the mind is no such thing. So an absence of truly, of any appearance of self-established existence. So that's why Rinpoche was saying, that you need to quiet down, like the Tsongkhapa gave the instruction, quiet down, very, very still, and notice within that there's an automatically arising sense of me. Because in grosser levels, what's indicative is how often we say the word I in our head. This is very indicative. I mean, if we really get very advanced, then that won't enter our thoughts. I don't like this. What should I do now? All these complaints that go on in the voice in our head. We're always thinking, I, me. So that's on a gross level. So this is why, to really identify this automatically arising, as I explained, innate, the word is too confusing. It means that it arises, literally, the word means that it arises simultaneously in each moment. So it automatically arises. So like that, when, it's very, very quiet, then, there's nothing that it's identifying with, but it's just, I'm bored, or, whatever. There's this sense of me. And so that's what you want to identify. And when you meditate, it's just a total absence of no such thing. So it's not as though you are imagining something that is there and that you're taking something away from it. It just, His Holiness explains it as, just wham, you're just cutting it like that. And supposedly there is no appearance. In highest class of Tantra, they say it's like the appearance of the sun the sky at when there's no sunlight, no moonlight, no starlight, just when, it's first dawn. That is the type of appearance that is explained. But it's not explained in sutra, just they say no appearance. So this is what arises. I want to add something, but that's a tangent. So I have to remember. Maybe somebody can remind me if I don't remember the difference between the, remember we spoke about consciousness having the defining characteristic of both a consciousness and me, what the difference is. We'll come back to that. So anyway, there is just the arising, the appearance, but the appearance doesn't mean that they're seeing something. That just means something is arising to the mind. And this is voidness, and implicitly, it's not as though we implicitly know the basis when you're in total absorption. Conceptual is something else. But in total absorption, you don't even implicitly know the basis. But that doesn't mean that the basis doesn't exist. As in the example that the old Serkong Rinpoche said of seeing somebody walk past the window when you're inside, you don't see the bottom half of their body, but that doesn't mean they don't have a bottom half of the body. It's just that the mind is limited. You can only see one of the truths at the same time, at the time. Then the subsequent attainment things appear like, so explicit, what actually appears is like an illusion. But that like an illusion is not like before. Before, it appeared as though it was self-established from its own side. So coming, the self-established thing is popping out of the object. And here you understand that it is that it appears self-established because the instincts, the habits of grasping for true existence are projecting that. So it is, a slightly different flavor to, your understanding of that. And implicitly, so it's not appearing, you understand void, you have the understanding of voidness. So this is still non-conceptual. So it's like that how you meditate, and it would be that you are, as Rinpoche is saying, you're not forcing it. It is, that's how, if you have refuted, there's no such thing, and you refute that on the basis of inference, and you've gone through steps that, with inferential understanding, you have gone through one of these other, the lines of reasoning, and then you come to the conclusion. So that's through the category now of voidness. So, now it's represented by something that looks like space or whatever. We represent it with something. And that fits into the category of now I'm meditating on voidness again. So that's conceptual. Conceptual means it gives the connotation that it is not clear. Not vivid is the word. It's not vivid. So because you are, now it's obscured. It's obscured to you. It's not obvious. So then, this is Prasangika way of explaining, the next step would be that you're able to cognize this straightforwardly. Straightforwardly is without relying on the line of reasoning. So you can have straightforward like that. That's called uncontrived bodhicitta. You don't have to go through the 7-part cause and effect or equalizing self or others. You just instantly have it. That's what I was describing with, Lam Rim. You don't have to go through all the steps. You just instantly have it. So the same thing with voidness. Without having to go through the lines of reasoning, you instantly have it. But it's still conceptual. It's still through a category. And then if you have built up the first zillion eons of positive force, it will transform into non-conceptual, which means that without the category. So it's obvious to you, it's not hidden. It's an obvious phenomenon. And then, based on that, because you have refuted that it comes from the side of the object, nevertheless, because you have those habits of grasping for true existence when it appears like an illusion, you know that that's coming as a projection from your mind. Not that it's coming from the side of the object. And it's held by the force or this implicit understanding of voidness of it. So it's illusion-like. So now we are knowing it on the basis of analogy. That it's like an illusion. Does that answer your question a little bit?
Yeah, I think I listened to it again. Yes, it. But I understood that there are these 2 steps, right? And then you said, and then there is a step from the level of dependent origination back to voidness. Did it, or did you explain?
Well, going back and forth. Well, Yes, if the, I mean, usually the going back and forth is described in terms of, Rinpoche was calling it placement meditation. I call it stabilizing meditation. That there's analytical and stabilizing. So analytical is, well, you know, this is a problem with terminology. We tend to confuse analytical meditation with of hearing, thinking, and meditating with thinking. What is the whole? We get the information that's listening, and then the thinking thing is to figure it out. What does it mean? So we don't just have the words, but we have the meaning. And we have understood it. Understand is a very difficult word. What does it mean to understand it? You know, you can know what it means, but I don't really understand it. So, anyway, I have a very long article on what does it mean to understand something on the website, which is, because I had discussed this with Rinpoche before I wrote the article. There's no word in Tibetan for understand. There's the word that sometimes is used for understand, but it's also for realization. So it's not the same as understand. Hakosung is not a classical term. So anyway, we understand it on the base from the whatchamacallit, thinking. So then what is translated as analytical, because that actually thinking is analysis, putting it all together and trying to figure it out. Then it is discerning it. I prefer to discern that you actually see it. You've understood it, and now I see that it's like that. That's the meditation. So it is an active thing. Like His Holiness explained once, it was wonderful. I had not, I've only heard His Holiness say it once. I've never heard him say it again. But the difference between stabilizing meditation and so-called analytical, discerning meditation. So the difference between shamatha on bodhicitta and vipassana on bodhicitta. And for stabilizing meditation, it's passive. The energy just is, it's there and it just stays like that. The energy of, your meditation is active, it's going out to the object. That's the vipassana thing, that you actually see it. Not just stay focused on it, but you actively see that it's that like that. That's the difference. So actually to be able to meditate is super, super advanced. What we call, giving the name of the result to, the cause, what we are so-called practicing. But the real thing is how it actually then becomes, I think it's only at that level that we can say that you have digested it and really understood it. So that it, the sign that, just in my analysis, the sign that you've really understood it is if it's transformative. That it transforms your behavior and lessens your anger and so on. Then you've understood it. Otherwise, just to recite, the definition and the meaning doesn't mean you've understood it. So that comes from discerning it, seeing it, practically. That's the analytical meditation. So the alternating thing is when, that discerning it gets weak, you go back to stabilizing. And when the stabilizing gets weak, you go back to the, discerning it. So that goes back and forth. So I could imagine that also you would do that between total absorption and subsequent attainment. You know, when one gets weak, you go back to the other, back and forth. Okay? So what I wanted to mention, I do remember, is that the definition of mind, first of all, I think, don't call it mind. It's not a noun. We're not talking about a thing. What we are talking about is a what I would call mental activity. It's an activity. It is what the brain and nervous system is doing. So it's, you know, cognition, it's cognizing something. So it's an activity, mental activity. So what are the three characteristics, the three words that are used in it? One is translated as clarity, but again, it has to be taken as a verb. So to make things clear. So that means that on the one hand, it is cleared of any obstructions that would prevent knowing something. And knowing something is nangwa, appearing, appearance making. It's a verb. And so I describe that as the arising of a mental hologram. That it is clear, it's open like space. They use the open space analogy in Dzogchen, and anything can arise. So mental hologram of something, like I described, you don't actually see the object, it gets transformed into, literally the word is like an impression, an appearance of it. So it's an appearance making. And then some cognitive aspect, which His Holiness says that the first one is like the verb which is used for the rising of the sun. You know, there's nothing preventing the sun from rising, and something is rising. And for knowing, it is an engagement, a cognitive engagement, a knowing type of engagement, which could be understanding it, not understanding it, seeing it, hearing it, thinking it, some sort of cognitive engagement. So when the difference between a consciousness and a person is a person has the cognitive aspect, I know this, but the person doesn't give rise to the appearance. Only the consciousness gives rise to the appearance. That's the difference.
Clarity aspect.
Clarity aspect, the person doesn't have. Consciousness has both. Because you were asking in terms of, how the basis could contain both. So it's like that. So now we've taken a lot of time with one question, but it's a very good question. Very good question. Who's next?
Just a quick reminder, you should take a minute.
Well, at 8:15. It's only a few minutes after 8. But a warning, a 15-minute before bell is very good. Thank you.
This advice from Lama Tsongkhapa, if we come down and down and down, and then we have the appearance of the I being separate from the aggregates.
Well,
Right?
the subtle appearance of the self, the automatically arising of the self, it could appear either identical with the mind, or it could appear separate. I mean, it could appear in either way.
Oh, in either way. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. But that what appears when we are calmed down.
Which arises, yeah.
Yes, that would be the object of negation, correct?
Right.
So I'm a bit lost with this advice. At what point in our practice should we take this advice to to recognize the object of negation, because usually we are taught the easiest way to recognize the object of, or at least approaching the recognition of the object of negation is we take very strong emotions like anger, then becomes quite clear. So,
Right.
what's the difference in these two approaches?
I don't know. Anyway, does that need to be lifted? It's loud enough. Okay. There are levels of recognizing it. And so the classic one is that, somebody calls you a thief and you say, what, me? I'm not a thief. So the strong emotion is like that. That is how we recognize it on a grosser level. It's not, we're not talking about doctrinally based. We're talking about the automatically arising. Doctrinally based is that I've learned what an Atman is and I believe in it, and now, I think of myself in terms of that. So we're not thinking of ourselves in terms of an Atman, but this automatically arising one will, in gross, on a gross level, appears. So once we recognize that, we have to recognize it on a more subtle level. And this is what Tsongkhapa was saying, and it's not so unusual. Why is there the advice that before we do our meditation, count the breath? It's the same type of thing, because we want to make a space between what we were doing before and all the thoughts and activity before, calm down, and then we can generate a constructive state of mind, a positive state of mind. So it's similar to that if we really quiet down, still there will be a sense of me arising. Another way of doing this, which you have in some of the Tantra and Dzogchen practices, is to sense deprivation.
To what?
Sense deprivation. You go into, a dark room, inside a dark room, so there's absolutely no light, no sound, nothing like that. And, of course, then you feel your heartbeat and you feel your breath. But, to see that even without that sense of me still arises.
Am I allowed a follow-up question?
Of course.
So to clarify, when we use the strong emotions, would that be then this level of object of negation, like I'm the owner of the aggregates, more like that? Like I'm the boss of my mind and my body?
Well, you could associate it with that, but just, who, me? I'm not a thief. I don't know that you're thinking so much of the me as being, the owner of my body. I think it's more when we think, what should I do now? What do people think of me? That is more like I'm inside the inhabitant of my body. What should I do now? I control the body, that type of thought. Looking in the mirror, I'm fat. We are identifying with the aggregate, with the form aggregate. So just who, me? That type of thought. I'm not a thief. So that's the identification of that I'm not a thief. So I'm not identifying with that. I think this is just more the self-established me that automatically arises. We think in terms of me. So in that sense, it would be separate from, an aggregate that's a thief. So separate from that, I think. I don't know.
Okay, and then the other approach would then be more really like the inherent existent I.
You mean quieting down?
Yes.
Well, not inherent existence. That's the problem of the word innate. We're talking about what automatically arises.
But isn't that inherent existence what automatically arises?
No, just because what automatically arises is an appearance of self-established existence. But that appearance of self-established existence could also be doctrinally based. So there's a mode of existence, self-established, inherently, literally is established by the power of itself. And that appearance could arise either because you learned it from accepting another tenet system that asserts that, so now you believe that, or it could automatically arise. Automatically arise, you should always think in terms of the dog has it. Everybody has it. It's how the mind works. It is part of conceptual, it's just how the mind, because of the habits of grasping for that, of perceiving that, of projecting it and perceiving it, that the mind continues to project it. So that automatically arises every moment. And what arises is that it appears inherently existent. So it appears self-established. They're related to each other. But you could also have, for those who accept inherent existence, they also would say, truly established existence, that means independent of mental labeling, that automatically arises. Or seeing that things are established externally, before I see them, that automatically arises.
Okay, if we are at such a level that we would have such a concentration to be really that calm, to recognize what appears, then question, nevertheless, this would only be the first step. Recognizing the object, and
Correct.
then still we need to do all the analysis.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Correct. The quote is, if you can't see the target, you can't hit it with an arrow. Unless you're really lucky.
So I have a question, but bear with me because I'm a bit confused about it, so it will not be so clear. It's about...
To match it, the answer should not be clear.
I hope it would be, and then it would be less confused. But my question is about the example of reflection.
About what?
The example of reflection. Reflection in Prasangika.
Excuse me, I have to take the medicine. Yeah. But go on.
So first, if you could explain it, because maybe it would clear my confusion. But my confusion is about, I had this debate with Thomas.
Yeah, by reflection you're referring to hearing, thinking, and meditating. So you're referring to the second one?
No, the face in the mirror.
Oh, the reflection in the mirror.
Yeah, yes. The reflection in the mirror, the example to understand the emptiness of Prasangika and how the pentarizing works. And my confusion is about... Okay, so Prasangika says that there is nothing from the side of the object, like 0% from the side of the object, and it's completely from the side of the mind.
Well, there's nothing from the side of the mind either.
Okay, so I think you would clear things, but I would continue with more things relating to it. So I wonder, what can you say about the base of the dependent arising? Like the base of the object arises independence of, is tied to, like you said. What can you say about the base independently of the object and of the mind? Can you say something? I also heard it described as indescribable, that the base is indescribable apart from the object and mind, but I'm confused there.
Well, indescribable, beyond words, beyond concepts, which can be abbreviated as indescribable, just means that it is, something that with words and concepts, that a word and concept, conceptual cognition makes things appear truly existent. That's the problem with it, why you want to get rid of it, And so beyond words and beyond concepts means beyond an appearance of true existence. It doesn't, words and concepts are like boxes, and things appear to exist, in a box. Like in this, well, it's in the dictionary, and in this, the little entry in the dictionary, that's the box, and it fits in that. So beyond words and beyond concepts means beyond, it's not that. So all things are like that, beyond words and beyond concepts. So all things are, what was the word that you used? Indescribable. Describable means, that it can't, with words it means that it fits into boxes. So, now the analogy of the mirror. The mirror is the basis of imputation. The face is the concept or word. And what it refers to is the reflection in the mirror. So, does the mirror... I don't want to go there. But remember, a basis of imputation and something that is, imputed on it, the reference object and so on, they arise mutually, dependent on each other. So that's one point. But the thing is that if something were established on its own side, from its own side, it would be like there is the reflection in the mirror already. This would be Svatantrika, and then you come along and label it. So then, the reflection is there, and, you come along with your face, and the face matches it. You can identify, now it's this person's face. That would be the Svatantrika version of this analogy that's being refuted. So it's not that there's a face in there in the basis already. This would be the defining characteristic of a person is found in the basis, the mental consciousness, and that, we're just coming along, and then, on the basis of it being there and it being labeled, then you get, the conventional face. And what's refuted is that it is only mental labeling, not, without there being something on the base. That's what's being refuted. So they're refuting prasangika. And the fact that you need the mental label is refuting the lower schools. So it refutes in the two directions. So prasangika is saying, well, you have the mirror and you have the face. So you have, a consciousness, or the aggregates, and you have the concept or word, me, or of anything. And the two of them coming together, then you have, what it refers to, what it conventionally refers to. Because by convention, people agreed that this sound, or this idea, is what we'll call it. So the analogy works like that. It's not that I mean, yes, they are, all of them are beyond words and beyond concepts. Everything is beyond words and beyond concepts. Nothing exists truly, self-established. But that's not really countering. This I always find odd, because it seems as though if you just posit beyond words, beyond concepts, that it is that you don't have to actually oppose, an opposite way of taking something, of, self-established existence. You just go to some transcendent realm, which is beyond words and beyond concepts. So that's sort of, transcendentalism. And that doesn't refute anything. So that's why I always find, if you don't understand what they mean by beyond words and beyond concepts, that could be very much misunderstood. I just go off and space out and go into some transcendent realm. And then I'm free. Okay? Hope that wasn't too unclear.
It made things clearer.
Pardon?
It made things clearer. Thank you.
I also wanted to clarify one thing.
Yes.
Before we talked about the mind's definition of that which is clear. And
the
knowing.
third word was merely. It's merely that. There's
merely.
no self, which is either the separate from it and controlling it, and there's no thing like, the machine called mind that the self is working and making things appear on.
So with merely that, meaning merely what?
Mere is a negation, it refutes something.
Yeah.
So it refutes a separate self, or a self that's identical to it, but a separate self that is operating this thing called mind. So it also refutes that mind is a thing.
Okay.
Because that is, I'll use my mind to figure it out.
Yeah.
So there's a little me inside, and there's this machine called mind, and I'm going to press the buttons and I'll figure it out. That will be the result.
Because you also refer to...
I'll use my body too,
Right. But when you say clear in the sense of it being a verb, to clarify, right?
It is to make things clearly appear. And then another explanation is that because itself is clear,
Yes, right.
like open space, so anything can arise.
Referring to its entity as clarity.
Right. But we shouldn't think of it as a light bulb.
That's right.
It's not light. Yeah.
Nobody didn't ask.
Good.
Maybe this goes off topic now, but this clarity, is this the same as luminosity?
Yes. That's translated as luminosity, but I think most people would be, if you ask them what does luminosity mean, would be quite puzzled. What does luminosity? Luminous, shines in the dark. I mean, that's what luminous means. Yep.
So today you were talking that there is I don't know if a more subtle way of viewing emptiness of phenomena by viewing the emptiness of mind, which is the basis for all phenomena.
Mine, me and mine.
No, not mind.
Mind.
The mind, which is the basis of all phenomena. So you talked today about.
Well, I don't know that mind is the basis of all phenomenon.
I'm not sure that's
I wouldn't say
the
that.
words you used, but I know it differently as the mind which radiates phenomena.
Radiates phenomenon.
But you used a different terminology today.
Well, mind doesn't radiate. Radiate sounds as though it's creating it. Things aren't, mind doesn't create things. Mind will create the appearance of things. but it doesn't create, not even the Chittamachans would say that it creates things.
Not
My
in the
mind doesn't create you.
not in the sense of create, but I'm asking about what you explained today. I think you talked about like in Shri Heruka, the He step.
In what?
Shri Heruka.
Sri Haruka.
No, he did not mention it. He didn't mention it today. I don't know how to explain.
Emma Ho, I think. Emma Ho.
Oh, Emma Ho. Yeah, that's not Sri Heruka in the meditation on voidness and chakra samvara sadhana, so that's something else.
But you
Emma
talked about
Ho.
a way of seeing emptiness of phenomena through the emptiness of the mind.
No. I remember what Rinpoche said. Emma Ho. When I translated those verses, I just say how wondrous. It's basically, wow. It's the equivalent of saying wow. But fantastic. This is incredible. Rinpoche was saying that it gives the connotation of great bliss. That, but he didn't explain further, and I don't know that. It's hard for me to just make something up to explain that. Why those words are used as great. When you have in various offering pujas and stuff like that, where you would say Emaho, there you can understand it as great bliss because it's in the connotation of Tantra.
I think I meant to ask about something else.
I
I was meant to ask about something else, not about Emaho, but about. I opened my notes now. You said once you are familiar with voidness, when you look on the emptiness of phenomena, you start by voidness of the mind to establish the emptiness of phenomena.
Oh no! What I said was that a beginner will start with the voidness of the self, and then voidness of phenomenon. So, for instance, liberation in the palm of your hands. That's the order. First it explains voidness of a person, and then voidness of all phenomena. Because the simple explanation of that is that because it's easier to understand. The more sophisticated explanation Rinpoche gave that with a person you refute that that it is exists independently of the mind as a basis, but it can be any of the mind is taken as the basis, or it can be known separately from the base from the mind, and then even if it can exist independently of the mind, but it can be known by itself. That's by Bhashika. And then what's left over after that would be, if you want to just jump to there's stages of it of some of Chittamatra, Svatantrika, Prasangika, so that you go like that to the voidness of all phenomenon. But once you are familiar with it, then later on, and I think this comes from somewhere, my memory bank says that it comes from somewhere in Chandrakirti, that when you are familiar with voidness, then you start in your meditation the voidness of the basis of imputation, the aggregates. And if the basis itself is void of substantial existence, how could a self which takes that on, is imputed on that basis of existence, how could that be self-established? So when you're familiar with it, you go like that, that's the order in which you meditate on them. That was what I explained.
Like instead of going from the
and then
self,
Rinpoche had explained that in terms of mine coming first, refuting mine. So mine is my, the aggregates belong to me, and then refuting the me. So it's the same explanation, just from a same meaning, but just explained from a different point of view.
Instead of going through the self and trying to establish the emptiness of the I, you start with the aggregates and then you go to the I.
When you have become very familiar with voidness, but when you are first trying to understand it, you start with the voidness of the person.
Okay, thank you.
It's easier, more obvious.
Sorry, last one, then we have to finish.
We can go a few more minutes, it doesn't matter.
But it does make sense, but it's interesting though, because Chandrakirti uses the example of the chariot to make the meditation on the voidness of the self clearer for beginners, so to say, right?
Well, I don't know for beginners.
I mean beginners, but when we talk about...
Chandrakirti is not quite
No,
for
but-
beginners.
But if we want to understand or meditate on the emptiness of the self, he would use the example, first of all, of the emptiness of the chariot. Right?
Well, by understanding that, it's not... I don't know. I don't know what to say about that.
That's fine.
The chariot thing is all the things that it's not it's not the parts, it's not all of that is the basis of imputation of a chariot. So first refuting the basis and then the chariot, then you understand that there is no self-established chariot. So that's when you're familiar. That's the same thing, that first the aggregates and then the self, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay.
Right. But remember, there's a difference between the self as, to use Sautrantika. This is why it's very important to have understood Sautrantika first. The self, the conventional self, from the Sautrantika point of view, has objective existence. It can be known non-conceptually. You can't know it independently of the aggregates, and you can't know it, it doesn't exist independently of the aggregates, it can't be known separately from the aggregates, but objectively, it's there. It can be seen non-conceptually. Now, how do you establish or prove that there is such a thing as me? Well, we have a concept me, and we have a word me, and it refers to something. So whether this is why Rinpoche was using the example of his names, or the baby. The baby, there is a person there with a mother. Baby, recognizes, knows that there is such a thing because of the function that it's doing. So this sounds almost like, Vaibhashika and Sautrantika, what establishes that something exists is because it performs a function. Then, what establishes this thing, this objective thing, that is, functioning, giving it milk. Now we get a name for it, so I can distinguish it from the dog. The name is going to be mother. So, is there such a thing as a mother? I'm not talking about is there such a thing as this person? Is there such a thing as a mother? Well, yes, it's because we have the concept and the word mother. But with it, with that concept and word, is that it is a box. And, things are truly existent in this box as mother. So every time that I see her, I'm seeing something different, or I think of her, I think something different. I fit it into that box. It truly fits into this box of my concept of mother and the word mother. And even in terms of it being a thing, as I said, everything is, it's just a collection of particles and force fields and stuff like that. So making it into a thing is like, encapsulating it in plastic. But nevertheless, conventionally, things are like that. And we give names in order to be able to, as we use the example, to distinguish this cow from that cow. So you give each one a different name. And then you can refer to them as individuals. That's language. Purpose of language. And even without giving it a word, the cows would have a concept of, this cow and that cow. I like this one, I don't like that one. They have a concept of that. They don't have a word, but they certainly have a concept of it. My barn, my stall. They have that. Yeah. Good, otherwise the ship is out of balance. It's all on this side.
Me?
Doesn't matter. You fight it out. Boxing gloves. Who goes first?
Maybe I'm too far into thinking, but I wanted to ask a question anyways.
Me into thinking. That's weird.
Yeah, it's weird. Like what's going on is does Prasangika says that there's no agent?
No, it doesn't say that.
Okay.
I
Yes.
do things.
Yes. Because
You're talking.
Yeah.
I'm listening. We're doing things.
Yeah. Okay. That's yeah. Because I was thinking like, when everything is just functioning, how does it come that I have an influence how things function?
Well, you're part of the functioning process.
Yes. Yeah, I'm just confused. Maybe it doesn't.
Well, even though if you put an eyeball here, the eyeball, can't. It can function as an object that I can see. It can perform
Yes.
that function. Can't perform the function of seeing. So, it has to have other things. So consciousness is a basis of a me. You can't have, even though the defining characteristic of me is not found inside, on the side of the consciousness, nevertheless, it can't exist independently of consciousness.
Yeah. But
So, you can't just have consciousness, just by itself. It has to be as a basis of a person. So the person is the agent seeing. The eye is seeing, and me, I'm seeing as well. Just as we said, the consciousness knows, and I know, but the consciousness is making that cognitive appearance. The self is not.
yeah, I think the question is from where comes the influence that I can transform a mind, or the habituation.
From the strength of the mental factors. So perseverance, seeing the necessity, so that gives, the strength to the perseverance and so on, and the enlightening influence and instructions of how to do it, and the enlightening influence, which means the inspiration, the uplifting from the teacher, from the role model, basically. You need a role model. This is what, the difference between a psychiatrist and a guru. Guru is the role model. Psychiatrist isn't. Maybe. Depends. Not usually. The ones that I know pretty messed up. Yeah.
I would just...
Okay.
Yeah, blue flush.
You said that we can't have just consciousness, but
You can't have
that there is not just consciousness.
not consciousness without it being consciousness of a person,
But
of an
when,
individual being.
but when the individual being is dead and not in samsara again, isn't it? Then it is not.
Well,
belong
Buddha
to
has
the person.
consciousness. It's a different type of consciousness.
No, but I mean when you're not like on earth, when you're not like as a person right now, and you are dead.
Well,
isn't it like
you're still a person when you're dead.
But the consciousness then still is a person.
There's death consciousness. There's death existence, Bardo existence, and there is no break in the consciousness.
Yeah, there's no break in the consciousness, but is it?
And
still,
there's still a person that can be imputed on it. Now I'm dead. I mean, that's an indication that, people who don't believe in rebirth, they still will say, I don't know what happens when I'm dead. So implicitly, they still think, that there's something. Well, in the microphone, please.
But like the consciousness will not be reborn in the same person. So isn't
No,
it like
the consciousness
person
will
free in between?
Well, no, the consciousness. Now you're confusing two things. You're what a person is. What we mean by a person is just an individual sentient being. Yeah. So it's still that same individual sentient being, but the next episode of it, in a sense. So remember, we were talking about, what Tsongkhapa said is frightening of death is when the basis of imputation of the self is too narrow, that we're only, thinking of the self on the basis of this little portion of the beginningless continuum of, the mind. So you have to broaden that. So that means, and this continuum doesn't become somebody else's continuum. It retains its individuality. So although it is there's a continuity of the person, nevertheless, they have different bodies, they have different personalities, etc., because they have different potentials, so many different karmic potentials for completing karma, and also for, the mental factors, and so on. So, there is the old Serkong Rinpoche and the new Serkong Rinpoche. From the point of view of person, it's the same person, but they're not the same. I mean, we don't have the word. It's the same sentient being. But the old one and the new one are not identical. They're not totally different. They're not totally the same. There are things that you can see are continuums.
Yeah.
I think it's the definition of the words problem again here.
Pardon? The
I think
definition
it-
of,
yeah,
of
the words.
Of words,
Yeah,
yes.
I think it's one of those problems again.
Always. Always our problem comes from this is why we say that, the actuality is beyond words, beyond concepts. It's very difficult to explain things in another language, especially. Maybe last question.
You referred to the automatic self-grasping?
Automatically arising.
Automatically arising. But that,
So the dog has it. You don't have to have learned it.
right. But it doesn't have to arise. It
No, it does arise. It doesn't have to, because you can eliminate it.
Right.
But without doing anything, it arises in every moment.
But only because of beginningless habit.
Right. Right. Any other pressing question? Although I said last question. Well, the lady in the back, I don't know your name, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I don't know whether I precisely can describe the question. It's about the 12 links and karma, and I have the impression I have a missing link. I didn't get exactly the point when there is no karma, because my definition of karma is, first of all, it's intention, and you have a better English word for it, I don't remember. And second,
An impulse.
Yes, impulse. And second, action, which is physical, right? We have
Well,
these
it's
two.
the movement. The action is the whole
movement.
thing.
But then what I don't understand is, at a certain point on the stage of on the path, you don't produce any karma anymore, but you act, right?
But you end?
Act.
Act.
Action.
You don't, well,
So my question is, I just didn't understand the concept. So there is a point where you don't produce karma.
you don't produce karmic potentials.
Karmic potentials, and I didn't bring that together with a person who, in this continuum at this stage, is active.
Right, okay, that's not so difficult
Okay.
to understand. We're talking about, first of all, karma does not mean action, so as soon as you start to call it action, you will get very, very confused. So, put that aside. An action requires a mind, it requires the object, requires, so many things constitute an action. Karma is just one little piece of it. So the karma is remember, I use these adjectives, compelling urging, so it's compelled by some disturbing emotion. And then compulsively you smack that mosquito, or compulsively you tell a lie, or compulsively you swear, harsh language, because of some disturbing emotion, right? And so when you get rid of the ignorance which is causing the disturbing emotion, which is causing your behavior to be compulsive, you can still act, you can still do things. Right, and then for, a Buddha and so on, it's driven by compassion, great compassion. Okay? So maybe that's a good place to end. Bugi chushi meto tang, rirab lingshi nide gembadi, sangye shingdu migde uwagi, Droka nanta shingla jubasho Dam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Atayami Rinpoche Mage Banam Geguche Gebanyamba Mebayam Kone Kontu Pelwashu